The Nerean dawn broke with a riot of colors across the horizon, hues that Victor had never seen on Earth. As the sun crested the alien landscape, its first light found Victor standing atop a small hill, overlooking a ragtag assembly of Nerean warriors. Beside him, the fluttering of a makeshift banner, a piece of human uniform tied to a Nerean spear, symbolized the unity of his new allegiance. Victor turned to face the group, their faces a canvas of determination and apprehension. They were farmers, artisans, and scholars, not born warriors, yet their eyes burned with a resolve born of necessity. Among them, young faces peppered the crowd, a stark reminder of what was at stake. "Today, we train not just to fight," Victor began, his voice carrying over the gentle breeze, "but to defend our homes, our families, and our future." His use of "our" was deliberate, reinforcing his shared commitment to their cause. The training ground was a clearing by the edge of a dense forest, the trees standing tall like silent sentinels. Victor walked among the Nereans, showing them how to hold their rifles, how to aim, and how to move in battle. His commands were translated by Lyra, who stayed close, her presence a comforting constant. "Keep your elbows tucked in," Victor instructed a young Nerean boy, gently adjusting his stance. "It makes you a smaller target and stabilizes your shot," the boy nodded, his eyes wide with both fear and admiration. Victor moved on, demonstrating a series of combat rolls and dives on the soft, mossy ground. The Nereans followed, their initial awkwardness giving way to more fluid movements. Lyra, ever the quick learner, mirrored Victor's maneuvers with surprising agility, her movements graceful yet precise. As the sun climbed higher, Victor introduced tactical formations. He explained the importance of cover, the art of the ambush, and the strategies of retreat and regroup. Using sticks and stones, he mapped out potential battlefields on the ground, showing them how to use the terrain to their advantage. "Anticipate where your enemy will be, not where they are now," Victor explained, pointing to a mock setup of an ambush. A group of Nereans listened intently, their brows furrowed in concentration. The afternoon brought with it a mock battle. Victor divided the warriors into two groups, assigning leaders to each based on their morning's performance. The exercise was chaotic at first, with commands getting lost in the heat of action. Yet, as the dust settled, the Nereans began to move with purpose, their actions reflecting the lessons of the day. Watching from the sidelines, Victor felt a swell of pride. These were not professional soldiers, but they had the heart of warriors. Their resilience reminded him of his own troops, back when they were green and untested, but eager. As the mock battle drew to a close, Victor called the group together. Sweat and dirt marked their faces, but so did smiles of accomplishment. They gathered around him, their attention absolute. "We are stronger together than we are apart," Victor said, meeting their gazes. "What we lack in technology, we make up for in spirit and ingenuity. Remember, the goal isn't just to fight, it's to survive, to outlast the enemy, to protect what's ours." The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the training field. The Nereans dispersed, heading back to their families, their homes, but with a new stride in their steps, a stride of newfound confidence. As the sky painted itself in the twilight hues of purple and gold, Lyra approached Victor. "They believe in you," she said simply, her voice a mix of gratitude and concern. Victor watched the Nereans' retreating figures. "And I believe in them," he replied, the weight of his responsibility heavy on his shoulders yet lightened by the trust of those he now called his comrades. The stars began to appear, the first sentinels of the night, and under their watchful gaze, Victor and Lyra walked back to their camp, ready for whatever the coming days might bring. The air was thick with anticipation, and the scent of an impending storm hung over the craggy terrain of Nyra. Victor stood atop a rocky outcrop, surveying the expansive battlefield below. His eyes, once solely focused on tactical conquests, now burned with a different fire, one fueled by conviction and a newfound loyalty to the Nerean cause. Beside him, Lyra adjusted the bandolier across her chest, each compartment filled with medicinal herbs and emergency supplies. Her presence on the battlefield was unorthodox, yet her resolve was undeniable. Victor glanced at her, a silent nod conveying his gratitude and respect. She smiled back, her expression both serene and fierce. The Nerian forces, bolstered by Victor's strategic acumen, had transformed from a ragtag group of resistance fighters into a formidable army. Each warrior was painted with the vibrant colors of their tribes, their faces etched with lines of determination and pride. Victor had taught them not just how to fight, but how to outthink their opponents, to be unpredictable, and to use the landscape to their advantage. The plan for today was Victor's most audacious yet. They were to reclaim the thaloric fields, a strategic point crucial for its rich deposits of nixium, the very resource that had drawn humanity to Nyra like moths to a flame. The human forces had fortified their position, expecting a direct assault. They would not be expecting what Victor had devised, a multi-pronged attack that would begin with a feint from the east, followed by a swift and devastating strike from the shadows of the Galden Caves to the west. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, signaling the commencement of the operation, Victor raised his arm, his hand clenched in a fist. At his signal, the Eastern Battalion, consisting of Nerian riders on their swift, six-legged cauldrons, charged forward, kicking up a cloud of dust that could be seen for miles. The distant sound of alarms signaled that their diversion had taken effect. Victor turned to the west, where the main body of their army lay in wait. With a swift chop of his hand, they surged forward, moving silently despite their numbers. Victor, Lyra, and a contingent of Nerian elite warriors crept through the underbrush, their movements a whisper against the wind. The human forces, caught off guard by the ferocity and coordination of the Nerian attack, scrambled to redirect their firepower. But Victor's tactics had spread them too thin, as he and his team infiltrated the heart of the human encampment. Chaos ensued. Blasts and cries filled the air, but amidst the cacophony, Victor's focus was unyielding. Each command he issued was precise, each decision slicing through the disorder like a blade. In the thick of battle, Lyra proved indispensable, not just for her healing skills, but also for her courage. She moved through the wounded, her hands a blur of efficiency, saving lives with every touch. Her actions under such peril only deepened the Nerians' respect for her, and their resolve hardened like the stones underfoot. The turning point came when Victor and his squad captured the enemy's command center, securing the communication lines and artillery controls. With these in their possession, the tide of battle shifted irreversibly. Commands issued from Victor's stolen console turned the humans' own weapons against them, sowing confusion and fear. As the sun climbed higher, the field, strewn with signs of battle, bore witness to a decisive Nerian victory. Victor stood amid the reclaimed thaloric fields, his heart heavy with the cost of war, yet lightened by the glimpse of hope for Nyra's future. Around him, Nerians celebrated, their cheers a vibrant tapestry of relief and triumph. That night, under the stars of Nyra, the Nerians held a council of war. Victor, now more than just an ally, shared their fire and their plans for the future. Lyra sat beside him, her head resting lightly against his shoulder, their bond a symbol of the unity that had brought them this victory. The horizon of Nyra bled crimson as dawn broke over the fields of Varsil, a landscape that had once flourished with wild, colorful flora, now a battered arena of war. Victor stood atop a ridge, overlooking the valley where the destiny of Nyra would be decided. His armor, though human in design, bore the marks and symbols of the Nerians, a testament to the cause he now fought for. Beside him, his loyal soldiers, humans and Nerians alike, prepared for the confrontation, their faces set with determination and a touch of solemnity. The air was thick with anticipation, charged with the electric hum of energy weapons and the distant thuds of marching feet. Victor turned to face his makeshift army, his gaze sweeping over the faces he had come to know as brothers and sisters in arms. Today, we fight not just for Nyra, but for the soul of humanity, he declared, his voice resonant, instilling a fierce courage in their hearts. As the sun crested fully over the hills, the enemy came into view, a formidable line of human war machines and troops, their armor glinting ominously under the rising sun. The ground trembled under the weight of the mechanized units, their approach slow, deliberate, and terrifying. Victor felt a chill, not of fear, but of resolve. He gripped his weapon, a hybrid of human technology and Nerian craftsmanship, its weight comforting in his hands. With a nod to Lyra, who stood by his side, her face a mask of calm determination, Victor raised his arm. The signal was clear, and the air was suddenly alive with the sound of war cries and the whir of projectile weaponry. The battle commenced with the fury of a storm unleashed, both sides clashing with a violence born of desperation and necessity. The Nerians, under Victor's guidance, fought with a guerrilla prowess that turned the terrain to their advantage. They struck from hidden positions, their movements fluid and unpredictable, sapping the resolve of the human invaders with each calculated strike. Victor led a contingent through a narrow pass, flanking the enemy's eastern squadron and cutting them off from their main force. The surprise was total, and the ensuing chaos among the enemy ranks was like a fire that spread unchecked. Explosions rocked the valley as Victor and his team sabotaged the invaders' heavy artillery, turning the tide slowly in their favor. But victory was not without cost. Each explosion was echoed by the cries of the fallen, human and Nerian alike. Victor felt each loss keenly, the weight of command heavy on his shoulders as he pushed forward, driven by the need to end the conflict once and for all. As the battle raged into the afternoon, the skies darkened with the smoke of burning metal and the acrid smell of scorched earth. The central line of the human forces, now desperate to regain their footing, launched a devastating counterattack. Victor found himself at the heart of the melee, his blade clashing against that of a former comrade, Captain Mills, a man he once respected. "You traitor, Marquez!" Mills shouted over the din, his blade swinging with lethal intent. Victor parried, stepping back to avoid a thrust. "No, Mills! I'm fighting for what I now know is right!" Their blades met again with a clang that rang out like a bell toll in the chaos. The fight was personal, a duel that encapsulated the broader struggle between conquest and resistance. With a deft maneuver, Victor disarmed Mills, the latter staggering back, disbelief etched across his face. "I fight for Nera, for their right to live freely on their own planet," Victor declared, his blade at Mills' throat. But instead of delivering the final blow, he stepped back, offering Mills a chance to surrender. Shaking his head in defeat, Mills dropped to his knees, the fight draining out of him. As the human forces saw their captain defeated, their morale shattered, Victor seized the moment, rallying the Nerians to one final push. With a roar that echoed off the valley walls, they surged forward, overwhelming the invaders. When the dust settled, the field lay strewn with the remnants of battle, but the flag of Naira flew high over Varsil, a symbol of hard-won freedom. Victor, though victorious, felt the solemnity of their sacrifice. As he walked through the field helping the wounded and consoling the bereaved, he felt Lyra's hand in his, her presence a balm to his weary soul. The sun set on Varsil, painting the sky with the colors of fire and blood, a reminder of the day's cost, but also of its profound significance. Victor Marquez, once a commander of invaders, now stood as a hero of Naira, his legacy forever intertwined with the planet he had come to love and protect. In the aftermath of the battle, the air was thick with a mixture of acrid smoke and the sharp tang of alien flora, burned and trampled under the march of war. Nera's sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the battlefield that sprawled across the once verdant valley, now marred by the scars of human machinery and alien determination. Victor Marquez lay among the fallen, his breathing shallow, each breath a whisper against the weight of his injuries. The ground beneath him was cold and hard, but in his fading consciousness, he felt an odd sense of peace. The sounds of battle had receded, replaced by the quiet murmurs of Nerian warriors moving carefully through the wreckage, tending to their wounded, honoring their dead. Nearby, Lyra knelt by Victor, her hands glowing faintly with the luminescent herbs used in Nerian healing rites. She had been a constant presence by his side through the final hours of the confrontation, her face a mask of focused concern that broke only for brief moments of tender care. Now, as the reality of their victory seeped through the ranks of the Nerian fighters, her expression was tinged with sorrow for the price paid for this freedom. "Victor," she whispered, her voice breaking the stillness that surrounded them. Her hand reached out, resting gently against his cheek. You have given us more than we could have ever hoped for. You have given us our future. Victor turned his head slightly, meeting her gaze. His eyes, once filled with the resolve of a seasoned commander, now carried the softness of finality. It was worth it, Lyra, to see you, all of you, free. It's enough. Around them, the remnants of the battle told the story of a fierce fight. Human technology had clashed with Nerean spirit, and while the latter had prevailed, the landscape bore witness to the mutual destruction. Broken vehicles lay abandoned, their metal bodies twisted and exposed to the elements. Nerean weapons, crafted from the natural resources of their world, were scattered amidst the debris, some still clutched in the hands of their fallen owners. As the last light of day faded, torches were lit, casting a warm glow that began to fill the space. Nereans moved with purpose, gathering their comrades, offering solace where they could. A group of Nerean elders began a low, haunting chant, a traditional song of mourning and victory interwoven into a melody that seemed to rise from the very soul of the planet. Lyra continued to tend to Victor, her methods primitive yet filled with an ancient wisdom that had sustained her people through generations. But both knew it was not to save his life. It was to ease his passing. You will be remembered, Victor. Not as a conqueror, but as a protector, she said, her voice steady despite the tears that welled in her eyes. Victor managed a faint smile, a gesture of gratitude and acceptance. Tell them to look after each other. Humanity, we lose our way sometimes, but there's good in us. Remind them of that. I will, Lyra promised, her hand squeezing his. I will tell them of Victor Marquez, the human who fought for Naira, not against it. As night fully took hold, Victor's breaths grew fewer and farther between. The sounds of the nocturnal creatures of Naira began to fill the air, a testament to life's persistence. Victor's eyes fixed on the stars above, a tapestry of cosmic beauty untouched by the ravages of war. With one final breath, he turned his face to Lyra, his eyes reflecting the starlight, and then he was gone. His body relaxed, and the battle-scarred landscape seemed to accept him, one of its many heroes now at rest. The Nereans gathered, forming a circle around Victor's body. The elders continued their chants, and one by one, the warriors placed their weapons on the ground before him, a sign of respect and allegiance. Lyra stood up, her figure silhouetted against the firelight, and addressed her people. Tonight, we mourn a great warrior and a true friend. But let us also celebrate the dawn of our freedom, bought with the courage of those like Victor who believed in our right to live freely on our lands. The night grew deeper, the stars brighter, and the fires burned long into the early hours. Victor Marquez, once an invader, now lay as a defender of Naira, his legacy written not in the annals of his own people, but in the hearts of those he had helped to save. The battlefields of Naira had quieted. The lingering scent of scorched earth mingled with the fresh, sweet aroma of kivara blooms, a native flower that bloomed in adversity, much like the Nereans themselves. In the heart of the liberated lands, under the shade of towering Verudian trees, a somber gathering of Nereans and humans marked a scene of unexpected unity. They were here to honor Victor Marquez, a man who had transcended the boundaries of species and morality to fight for a cause not originally his own. Lyra stood at the forefront, her azure skin catching the golden rays of Neera's twin suns, her eyes a reservoir of unshed tears. Around her, the whispers of the Nerean mourners blended with the solemn silence of the human soldiers, Victor's loyal comrades, who had chosen to remain on Naira. Their faces, weathered from battle, bore expressions of profound loss and respect. A simple, yet dignified coffin made from the resilient wood of the ilmic tree, revered by Nereans for its strength and longevity, held the body of Victor Marquez. It lay at the center of a clearing, surrounded by a circle of kivara blooms, their violet hues stark against the dark wood. This coffin, though reminiscent of a human military tradition, bore engravings of Nerean symbols of peace and unity, a testament to the dual legacy Victor left behind. As the ceremony began, a gentle breeze stirred the leaves above, casting mosaic patterns of light. and shadow upon the attendees. An elder Nerian, draped in the ceremonial robes of a high mediator, stepped forward. His voice, when he spoke, was deep and resonant, carrying across the clearing. "We gather here not to mourn a conqueror, but to celebrate a protector," he began, his gaze lingering on the coffin before sweeping over the crowd. "Victor Marquez chose to embrace our world, our people, and our cause. In doing so, he taught us all the power of empathy and courage." Lyra, taking a deep, steadying breath, moved closer to the coffin. Her hands, trembling slightly, were steadied by the touch of one of Victor's former soldiers, a young lieutenant who had admired Victor not just as a commander, but as a moral compass. "Victor taught me that true strength lies in the ability to change one's heart." Lyra's voice wavered as she addressed the gathering. Her eyes, bright with unshed tears, reflected a soul changed by love and loss. "He healed in ways he did not know, leaving scars upon our hearts that we wear not as marks of pain, but as badges of honor." As the traditional Nerian flute played a soft, melancholic tune, a group of Nerian children, dressed in the colors of peace, light blue and white, stepped forward. Each child carried a single kivara bloom, which they gently placed around the coffin, a symbol of life continuing in the face of adversity. The ceremony drew to a close with the lowering of the coffin into the ground. The soft thud of earth hitting the coffin was a stark, final sound that echoed in the hearts of all present. As per Nerian customs, the grave was not marked with a stone, but with a sapling, a young ilmic tree, chosen for its endurance and strength. This tree, as it would grow, was to stand as a living monument to Victor's legacy, rooted in the soil of Naira, forever a part of its landscape. Lyra lingered by the graveside long after the others had departed. The suns began their descent behind the horizon, painting the sky with strokes of orange and purple. As night approached, the first stars twinkled into existence, watching over the new grave. Lyra whispered a final goodbye, her words a mix of a human prayer and a Nerian vow, symbolizing the blend of cultures that Victor had united. In the years to come, the shrine built around Victor's resting place would grow into a site of pilgrimage, not only for those who remembered the war, but for those who sought inspiration from a man who dared to defy the odds for peace. His story, taught to Nerian children and recounted in human history, would stand as a beacon of hope and courage, a reminder that even in the darkest times, light could be found and nurtured.